All right, Alyssa, I am so excited that you are here today. And I know that you have a six-figure business that is built off of referrals and social media and loving on your sphere. But I know it didn't start out that way. So tell us how you got started in real estate and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so basically, I got into real estate when I was fresh out of high school. I had just graduated high school, and the first year out of high school, I worked for an insurance company, and it was just kind of it was a job to me. It wasn't really anything major. And my mom at the time did hair, and she had a client come in who was looking for a receptionist for a real estate company that was real big in Sarasota at the time. They still are. They're very well known, but they were opening up a new office and they needed a receptionist. And she asked my mom, "Do you know anybody who is looking for a job?" And I wasn't really looking for a job, but my mom was like, "Hey, they're hiring and they were paying a little bit more money. And at the time, when you're 18, 19 years old, every dollar counts." So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, definitely I'll interview for it. So I went and interviewed and got hired right on the spot and started working for Michael Saunders and Company in Sarasota when I was 19 years old, just answering a telephone. And about a year after I was doing that, I was kind of like wanting to get the itch to do something different. And so they kind of moved me to a different position. It was a little bit more than just a receptionist position answering the phone. And there was somebody who was leaving another office for the commercial division. And they asked me if I wanted to go over there and basically be the office manager, administrative assistant, and had a lot more responsibility. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So I moved to that office and I ended up staying with Michael Saunders and Company for 15 years before I moved to Tampa. And that was in Sarasota at the time. And when I moved to Tampa, I was like, well, what am I going to do? Am I just going to quit real estate? Because I didn't know of any real estate companies in Tampa that had the same caliber or notoriety as Michael Saunders and Company. And no offense to anybody at other brokerages, but for me, like going somewhere else, like I felt like Michael Saunders is like where people wanted to end up, not necessarily where people start when they're in the business. So I didn't want to take a step back. And so I thought, I'm just going to leave real estate. I guess I'm going to be finding something new. But I ended up through Michael, who owned the company in Sarasota, made a connection for me up in Tampa. And I got with another local brokerage here that I met with the owner, and he basically told me, we model everything we do off of Michael Saunders and Company in Sarasota. And he's like, I don't have a job right now. I don't know where I'm going to put you. I don't even know what I'm going to pay you. But all I know is that I don't want to lose you because you came from this great company. We want to have you. So they hired me on the spot here as, for Smith and Associates here in Tampa. And at that time, they didn't have a position for me, but they unfortunately one of the staff members unexpectedly passed away. So they needed someone to fill the position that had the experience that he did. So I moved over to that position, was the office manager for our St. Pete office. I handled all the transaction paperwork, managed the staff, handled all the commissions, things like that. And I did that for a couple of years. So by this time, I had been in real estate for about 17 years. And I was like, my kids are getting older. I feel like I'm stuck, at an office. I don't have the flexibility to be there when they're home. And I feel like I'd already missed out on a lot of their lives. But I was always somebody who's like, I love having a job. I like punching the clock, knowing I have a paycheck. I could never do real estate. And I remember saying for years, I would never be a real estate agent because I want to know I'm getting a paycheck. And if I did ever do real estate, I'd never do residential real estate. I'd only do commercial because commercial is business and there's too many emotions involved in residential real estate business. Needless to say, I decided to get my license and sell residential real estate. And I've been doing that now for over 8 years. So I've been in the business for October, be 25 years since I've been in the business. 8 of those years have been licensed and selling. And now I'm like, I honestly can't imagine doing anything else at this point in my life.
That's
So,
incredible. I had
yeah.
no idea that you were like, no, I'm never going to do residential.
Yep. And then that's exactly what I've done for 8 years. So,
You're in the
and
thick
now
of
I've been
it.
out of commercial for so long that I don't even, people are like, do you do commercial real estate? And I'm like, oh, like it's been a really long time. Even though I was in there for 4 years, I forget everything about commercial now. So, yep.
I love that. You
Yeah.
already know I'm a huge fan of your content. It is so authentic. There is not a time that I have looked at your page and thought that it's salesy or canned. And I know for new agents, it's really hard to find your voice. How
Yeah.
did you figure that out?
Well, for me, the my personality, I know I love to have fun. I love to make people laugh. I can actually, when I meet new people, I'm actually very, very shy. It doesn't come off that way because I hide it pretty good, but I'm
Yeah,
actually
you
a pretty
do.
shy person. And I very much prefer to just like, hide behind the scenes. But, for me, so many people that I worked with hired me or wanted to work with me because they loved my personality. We connected. I made them laugh. They felt seen. They felt heard. I listened. I am a hard worker. I did all the things. And who I was in person was who I really was. That was my personality. But I felt like online, like, well, that's not going to attract people. I should be more professional and I should just be putting these Canva graphics up and I should have this polished, blazer, hair done, kind of robotic look. And I started thinking to myself, I had to be professional Alyssa online, but then in real life, I could be my real person. And then I even had two Instagrams. I did all the things.
Oh,
And
did
then,
you?
yeah, I used to have two Instagrams. I had one that was professional and one that was my personal. And I remember I was, talking with somebody and we were talking about how video was starting to become the new thing in social media. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't ever do video. Like that means I'm gonna have to be on camera. That means I'm gonna have to do this and do that. And I ended up actually listening to a podcast that doesn't actually exist anymore. It's called Over Ask Podcast. It was with Eric Simon, who's the broke agent, and Matt Leonetti,
Oh,
who
yeah.
are both very, very well known now.
Yeah.
At the time, people knew who they were, but they're not at the caliber that they are now. But they had somebody on that was her name was Giselle Ugardi, and she was a social media coach. And so I was like, well, maybe this is something I need to do. Like I can kind of figure out what exactly am I supposed to do with video because I was trying to do it on my own and I was making these like educational videos and I would be so worried about messing up my words and I would spend literal hours on one video and then get so frustrated and hate it that I would say forget it and I wouldn't do it. So like I wasted all this time and didn't even have anything to show for it. So I'm like, well, maybe this person can show me what I need to do and I'll just learn a little bit. And then all I really wanted to know was like, just let me know what's the best way to do a video and go viral because TikTok was just taking off. And I was like, that's what you have to do is just go viral, go viral. I went and looked up her classes and it wasn't cheap, but I was like, okay, either I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And it was literally coincidentally the last day that they were signing up to take people for their next round of boot camp or classes. So I'm like, closed my eyes and just hit submit, paid it, and started to take her classes. And let me tell you what, I have learned so much from Giselle over the years. I mean, it's probably been probably 3 years, probably close to 4 years at this point since I did that and really learned so much from her and being in the classes to the point where, other people who were signing up for her classes, like Giselle told me that there was somebody in particular that was trying to decide if they really wanted to do her classes or her boot camps and things like that. And they said, give me some examples of people who have taken your class. And I did not know at the time, but she went back and she was using me as an example. And she scrolled back and found one of my first videos that I posted and then a video of me recently and the person signed up based off of that. So when she told me that, I was like, oh my gosh. So I went back and I looked at my first video and I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what are you even doing right now? Like I was cringing over the video, but through her classes, it made me realize that people hire me and want to work with me because they know, like, and trust me. So who I am in real life is who people want to work with. So who I am in real life needs to be who I am online to be able to grow my business, attract new people, and make those connections. And no one connects with a robot. No one connects with Canva graphics. No offense to anybody who does that. I get it. We all have to start somewhere, but that's not what gets people. Any realtor can post just generic content, but no one looks at that and goes, yeah, I'm going to hire that person because they told me to call them if they need something. people want to know that you're a real person. They want to know that you're not just a real estate agent, you are a human being who just happens to sell real estate. And that was exactly what was the light bulb that went off for me, because I was like, yeah, I'm a human being who just happens to sell real estate. I've got tattoos. I've got pink hair, even though right now it really needs done right now, but I have tattoos. I have pink hair. I love my dogs. Like, I swear, I like to have fun. I like to make people laugh. I'm sarcastic. Like, that's the kind of stuff that connects with people. And if that's the thing that people don't want to see in a real estate agent, well, I'm totally okay with not attracting the wrong people. I want to work with the people who like me and I like them, and we're the right fit for each other. Because I'll tell you, not every client is somebody that I want to work with, and I'm not for everybody either. So that's okay. So it's helped me not waste my time on, people who maybe don't, we just don't, our personalities don't mesh well or anything like that. So learning how to get on video, learning how to talk to people and have conversations is really what I think has grown my social media, and really putting my authentic self out there and being like, not just authentic where I'm like, oh, see, I had pink hair and tattoos, but like posting the vulnerable content, posting the things that like people are like, you're in my head, or oh my gosh, I struggle with that too. And that was something I was afraid to do for so long. So I'm like, well, what if this is considered oversharing? Like, what if people think that that's like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I can't believe you shared that. And I remember when I posted something a couple of years ago, was right after I was recently diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and I was struggling hardcore with that. And I felt like nobody understands that unless they're actually going through it, and nobody knows that's something I'm going through. And so one day I was just like, you know what? I was having a really bad day, and I just decided to put it out there. And I just posted a picture of myself and wrote this caption like, I'm struggling, guys. Like, this is what's going on. And let me tell you what, how many people were in my DMs being like, first of all, I had no idea. But second of all, I felt this. I'm struggling too, whether or not with this, but something else. And you were just so vulnerable. And it made me realize that, like, yes, this is exactly the way that it needs to be. Like, social media is so important for your business, but it's also so important to show you as your person outside of that. And, I'm kind of, I know, going really deep into this, but something that I started doing on my social media that is such a good way to showcase your personal and your business, because you have to have that healthy balance of it. And I love doing my Friday posts where I do these Dear Diary posts, and it's basically like a
Yeah.
recap of my week. And I include business, I include my personal stuff. And it's proof of business, and it's proof of who I am without being like, hey, look at this. I sold a house. I did that. It's just clips of things that I did throughout my week. And I think that that resonates with so many people, because they're like, oh, look, she went out to dinner. She tried this new place. Or, oh, hey, she loves pizza. Or, oh my gosh, that happened. That's a crazy story that happened with a client. Like, it's, stuff like that. That's not just like sold another house or just listed another house, which, is the majority of our real estate agents.
So bad.
Again, no hate, no shade. I've been there, done that. And I look back on it and I'm like, oh, thank God I don't do that anymore. So,
It's like part of the process, though. We've all done it. I definitely did it for years.
yeah.
It's like coming up through the ranks. And I love your Dear Diary posts. I look forward to them every Friday because I feel like you're bringing your audience into your week. And as you said, it's not just real estate, and you're not slapping a just sold graphic in Canva on the house that you just sold. You provide context to, hey, yeah, I had a sale, but you tell us the client's story, and you always share the best pizza spots. Like, I'm going to come to Tampa just to go to pizza places with you.
And that's my favorite, absolute favorite food. So I'm people, and what's funny is when you share things like that, people remember that and it sticks with them, because there's so many times I have people that have never bought something from me, have never, like, I mean, and they're just people that follow me, and they'll send me a message and be like, hey, did you see this new place in Tampa? Or, oh, I saw this news article about the best pizza places in Tampa. What are your thoughts on that? Or even just, general things like that, things I share. Like, I have somebody who follows me. This is just something recently that happened. It made me think of this. Somebody who follows me that is, I don't even know them. I've never met them personally. They've never bought anything. They're not like, they just started following me from one of my reels or something that I did. And I went and tried out this new coffee place in Tampa last week. And I just posted about it and said, this new coffee place and opened up in Tampa. It was just a picture because I made a reel for it and I just hadn't posted the reel yet. I said, be on the lookout for the review reel coming soon. And this person, we also just had, not everybody, I know this is going to probably be nothing to some people, but Dutch Bros is like all over the place. We just got our first Dutch Bros here in South Tampa, and the lines have been crazy or whatever. So this person messaged me and said, I was going to go to Dutch Bros to try them out for the first time, but the line was crazy. And I remembered that you posted this thing about the new place in Tampa called Jump Cup. So I went there instead based on your recommendation. And I hadn't even said anything about the place yet, like whether I liked it or didn't like it. But they like saw that and immediately thought of me and messaged me to tell me that. So like, people are paying attention to your stuff, even if you don't think that they are. You're connecting with people. And I call them the lurkers and the looky loos. Like there's people who don't maybe engage with your stuff, or they're just kind of in the background watching. And it's going to click. People are watching you even if you don't think they're watching you. So it's, social media is just, it's such a big thing to do, and that's why you want to be able to put who you really are out there so people know you before they even meet you. So when they do, they're like, I feel like all the formalities are out of the way. We've known each other for years, even if we've never met in person. So that's really what it's good for.
What would you tell a new agent who is maybe hesitant or even downright scared to start doing video?
For me, I'm somebody who just shoots straight from the hip, and I say just rip the band-aid off and freaking do it. It's going to suck the first time. It's going to be terrible, but that's where you get better at it. And I know you and I have had this conversation even when it comes to YouTube, like Instagram, TikTok, all the short form stuff. It's like second nature to me. Like I can film stuff without even thinking about it. And like I said earlier, it used to take me hours to do it. But for me, I feel like just filming it, doing it, like start with something that you're comfortable to talk with, or even just do like an introduction of yourself. If you've never done video or even had your face anywhere on your social media, because you'd be surprised how many agents don't even show their face at all, except for them being in their post picture with their just sold graphic or something like that. So, like to get yourself out there, I would even say do a carousel of an introduction post of, hey, my name's Alyssa, and you might know me as blah, 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 a realtor who sells homes. But did you know this about me? And do a carousel post of your face, pictures of you, whether it's you love working out or you love walking your dogs or you love to ride your motorcycle or play sports or do something like that. Doing a carousel is a great way. But really, to me, I feel like video is the best way for people to hear your voice, see your face, see how you interact, and your personality is going to come through. Again, I'm a shoot straight from the hip. So to me, I'm like, just get the F on camera and do it
Yeah.
and post it. Don't think about it. Don't think twice about it. Just make a video and post it. And then as you get used to it and get more to do it, you're going to refine your craft. You're going to get more comfortable, and it's going to become second nature to you. So,
I think
and
that's
for
great
whatever you
advice.
do, don't post your video saying, Hi, I'm Alyssa and I'm with so and so. People know who
Good
you are.
tip. Yes.
Just get right into it.
That's so true. How do you say, I know you're really busy, not just with real estate, you're a wife, a mom, a dog mom. How do you stay so consistent? Because that's something else that I have noticed on your social. You are religious with being consistent and showing up. How do you juggle all of that?
Well, there's some weeks that, content doesn't really get done, like if it's especially busy, like, and that's why I typically plan ahead. So like last week I really try to, I go back and forth with batch creating content because sometimes I set myself up and like, okay, I'm going to batch create and have all of this stuff ready. And then there's times that like I just do stuff on the fly, but I really do make an effort to, at the beginning of every week, every Sunday, I, look at my week and see what days I've got appointments and things like that. And I make it a point to try to create at least one piece a day, whether it's a carousel, whether it's a reel, whether it's a green screen. and having at least like a list, like this is my list I have right now of like things that I wanted to create content with, whether it's all this week or whether it's just stuff that I have ideas for. I try to set aside some time at least every day to do it. And when you do that and you have stuff that's kind of, I say it, I like having one in the clip. There can be days and I'm like, oh, I feel like I don't want to create anything, but now I've got something that I can post if I want to. Or like this week has been incredibly busy for me. Like unexpected things popped up and I had a lot more appointments than I do some weeks. And I always joke and say it seems like it's feast or famine when it comes to real estate. And so this week was particularly busy with me being out of my office and in my car and going places. So I didn't necessarily really have time to sit and do something, but before you and I got on our call, I'm like, okay, well, today my only appointment is to talk with you. I don't have to be anywhere or go anywhere. So before we even got on, I'm like, okay, I quickly filmed a green screen. I prepped my carousel for today and I put together a B-roll. And so I was able to create 3 pieces of content in an hour because I'm like, I'm going to set time. It's in my calendar to set it aside. And I knew what time my call was. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that before I get this done. And for me, especially if I need to get it done, I put myself a non-negotiable. For me right now, my struggle is YouTube long form. I I'm still working on trying to do my YouTube channel, and so I know that that's a hard thing for me. So once a week, I pick a day, and I'm like, that's my non-negotiable is creating a YouTube long form. So just kind of it really depends on my mood, but I do try to have somewhat of a plan for content so that you're not just sitting there every day and going, now what am I going to do? And when things come to me in ideas, I have a notes app in my phone and I write those ideas down. So if I do have weeks and I'm like, what do I want to do this week? I'll just look at that and kind of piece together what I want to do based on that. Or if I'm reading articles, and there's been so many times that like I'm looking at the news articles for Tampa, like if you want to get to know some ideas to do for your local area, set up Google alerts for your city. I have that set up for Tampa, and there's been things that have come across in articles. I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that. And I quickly did a green screen on something, and it's like, people didn't know about it, or, oh, I didn't know that was going on in Tampa, and I'm going to do a video about that or a carousel about that. So, those are different ways to get content ideas too when you're having like that block of what do I need to post about today. So I hope that answered your question. I do have a game plan usually every week of what I want to create, and I just do my best to set time aside every single day to create it. That way you have something. Otherwise, you're always going to find something that's going to distract you or take your time away from it. And if you don't, it doesn't mean you have to spend 6 hours batch creating, but even if you like every day go, okay, I'm going to create one reel and one carousel and have it, that's just always something that you have available. So
I like the tip that you give too, that it's basically always on your radar. So if you think of something, you have a notebook that you write that idea down in so that you're then not trying to remember 2 days later when you sit down to actually make content. I think that's a
yeah,
really great tip and probably saves a lot of time. I do that
yeah,
too because, you have a good idea while you're driving and then 2 days later you forget the idea.
yeah, yeah. And I like to do funny stuff too. So like I thought of being able to use other videos that people do to come up with your own concept of stuff is good too. Like, look at what other people are doing. I mean, there's a lot of great content creators out there, and I get it. Everyone's like, oh, you want to be original. But if we're being honest, there's no real true original content anymore because you can take a trend and make it your own, or you can take, anything that other people do and turn it into something that you can use for your own personality or for real estate or anything like that. And it's like, I thought of a video that somebody did, that has nothing to do with real estate, but it made me laugh. And I'm like, actually, I can use that exact thing and make it, into a real estate thing. And it's goofy. It's not educational. It's something that's silly and funny and dumb, but it's just
Love
going to
it.
make people laugh.
Yeah.
So I have it in my head and I actually have it like, that's going to be another one that I'm going to be recording. So, I like to have fun too.
I like that you mentioned trends. Let's talk about how do you feel about trends and jumping on them? And talk to me about, do you think that trending audio is as important as it used to be? Is it a must-have, or can you get away with using audio that you feel is best?
I think there's a mix. So trends in and of themselves, they're called trends for a reason. It's because they're taking off and people are getting a lot of attention. But I don't always think that trends are the way to go because me personally, I know from my own personal experience when there's trends happening, like there's one that's going on right now that every other video is that trend. And so I'm not looking at them all. So what's happening is, oh, it's another one. And I scroll right past it. Even if it's somebody I know, I'm like, nope, I already saw that. Nope, I already saw that. So if you are only focusing on trends, and it's even if it's been like, especially if it's been a couple of days of this trend, people are likely not going to see yours. Now, we don't all have the same followers, and you may hit people that, that somebody did the exact same trend and that got nothing, and then you did the trend and you took off. And I mean, I do have an example of that. Somebody that I know, it was a trend. I guess it was a trend from a while ago because I didn't even know it was a trend, but she did it. I was like, that's actually really funny. And so I did it. Hers just did okay and mine went viral. Like I have like 14,000 views on it. I have hundreds of comments, like all these things. And it's just something silly, that I did as like guess the year I graduated based on my outfits. And like, it's something like that I put on and a lot of people commented on it. So I do think trends are important and it can be fun if it's something that you see and you like and you want to do. Don't do it just to do it because people can see right through that too. And it becomes saturated to the point where, like I said, people are just going to scroll. Trending audio, I do think that that does help, especially when you're using, I like to put audio on all of my carousels just because it kind of like adds a little something while people are scrolling through your pictures. So sometimes I'll pick a trending audio. Sometimes I'll just pick something that, is going with the aesthetic of whatever my Dear Diary post is for that week. If it's a little bit more sentimental and, a little less business, then I'll do something that's a little nicer. So trends have a place, but they shouldn't be the only thing that you are focusing on. And going viral is not everything. Like, you can get the wrong followers too and have people following you for the wrong reason. So don't just focus on viral and trending content. Sprinkle it in here and there and jump on things that you truly like and you relate to. Don't just do all trends. So hopefully that answers the question.
I think that's great advice. So many agents, especially new agents, I think get in their head that the goal should be to go viral. And for me, I found the exact opposite. The few times that I've gone viral, yes, you get a lot of followers, but they really don't care about your content and eventually they unfollow you. I would rather appeal to people that actually want to follow and are interested in what I'm posting, not just snag people because a post went viral. Do you feel the same
Right.
way?
Yeah, I do because, having people who are following you and not engaging with the rest of your content can actually end up hurting you. Like we all know, I know I get messages all the time where people are like, hey, if you pay this amount of money, I'll give you this many followers. And it's like, that's not the way to go either. And there's a way to be able to tell when people have genuine followers and when people have paid for the followers. I'm not going to call anybody out, obviously, but you can usually tell because when you have a lot of followers and your engagement is low, typically it's people who, I mean, maybe you did go viral and you did get those people, through that way. But when you're looking at your content and seeing that there's very little engagement, that's going to actually end up hurting you because, engagement does help. And reels are important, carousels are important, but a great way for me, like I feel for engagement and things like that, is getting in your stories and getting in your DMs with people because that's going to really help make those more personal connections. So yeah, definitely, you want to make sure that you're putting content out for the right people who are going to engage and do all the things. Because if you don't, then it's just going to end up hurting you in the long run and things are just going to sit there.
Yeah.
So we know the algorithm changes all the time and getting in front of people is getting harder and harder. So you really want to make sure that you're doing everything you can in the right ways, to make sure you're not just getting buried beneath everybody else. So,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Speaking of the algorithm changing all the time, what are your thoughts on hashtags right now?
I just don't do them anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like that they're not really something that people look for. I think that the algorithm is reading what you're putting out there. I mean, we know that through Facebook, Instagram, when we had those fact checkers at one point that are reading all your stuff, they're reading your captions, doing all the things. I think that Instagram and Facebook and all the social media, I think that they read what you're putting out there. So having keywords. So I really focus on when I'm writing my captions, being as specific as possible. I'm mentioning Tampa. I'm mentioning like when I sell a house in an area, if I'm telling the story, I'm like, this person bought in Tampa, this person bought in Carrollwood, this person bought in this city or that city, or like I'm mentioning restaurants, I'm mentioning places I go so that people can see not only that the areas I cover, but like the algorithm's going to start showing my stuff to people. They're going to see where I'm at, they're going to see what I'm doing, and I'm going to start getting my content pushed out to people for, whether they like pizza and they might see my video and be like, or see something about my pizza and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to follow her or whatever. Like, so putting your details in the captions, I think, are so much more important than just specific hashtags for whatever you're trying to get people to find you or search for. I don't think people are doing those searches as much as they once did. I think it's, people are kind of just finding people more organically. So
I like that. I still
yeah.
include a couple sometimes, and I always debate when I do it of, is this even relative anymore? And I'm with you. I just don't think it packs the punch that it used to.
Yeah, I don't think so. And sometimes depending on what the hashtags are and how many people have used it and stuff like that. Like I remember when hashtags used to be a thing and they're like, oh, only do one big one and then the rest of them should be small because if you do too many with too
Yes.
many, then it's just gonna get buried. And it's like, I know hashtags have become one of those things. I'm like, if I do a hashtag, does this make me look old? Am I a boomer now if I use a hashtag?
Us geriatric millennials over
I
here.
know, right? I'm not a millennial. That's the thing. People are like, oh, you're a millennial. And I'm like, I'm not a millennial. Because everyone's like, well, you're not Gen X. I'm like, I am Gen X because I was born in 81. I know this is total sidebar, but I was born in 81. And I've always been told I'm Gen X. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, people are like, oh, no, you're a millennial now because Gen X ended at 1980. I'm like, the hell it did. I'm like, everything that's Gen X is exactly me. And I do not relate to those millennials. I'm just kidding. It doesn't make a big deal. But I'm like, I'm not a millennial because I used to make fun of millennials. And I'm like, don't you take that away from me. I'm Gen
Oh, I
X.
love that because I thought you were like me, a geriatric millennial. I thought it was 80 too. So you're educating me.
It depends on who you ask. But sometimes then they call us like there's like Gen X and then we're called like Gen something. And it's like the in between Gen X and millennials. And I'm like, no, man, I'm Gen
I
X.
can't keep up.
I can't even, it doesn't matter. We just know we're not Gen Z. That's all.
That's true.
Oh man, those ones are like born. They were like born with technology in their hands. I'm like
Yes,
talking sometimes with Gen Z. I'm like, man, I feel like such a boomer.
it's hard to keep up and it gets harder
I
every
know.
year.
Yep, absolutely.
You mentioned posting about pizza places, and that just made me think you do such incredible local content. And obviously, it's great for the local businesses, but your followers really do attach to that. And you said you get DMs regularly. How do you decide what local content to put out?
So there's a couple of places a couple of pages that I follow on Instagram that are like Tampa development pages or like just local Tampa pages. Because a lot of times they'll post stuff like that's coming up, like, whether it's a building that's going to be something that's new or like a new restaurant opened up. And so that's really helped me kind of get a jump on things. And again, doing those Google alerts, like I had mentioned, has helped me also get a jump on stuff that's happening. So like I did it for their like when Dutch Bros came, it was a car wash and I found out that that car wash was closing down and that the rumor was it was going to become a Dutch Bros. And I went and did a video about that. And then it actually came to fruition. So then, like, that was one that I kind of got the early jump on that, then when they started announcing Dutch Bros, I was like, old news, I already did a video on that. But really just, following a couple of those local pages, driving around Tampa and just like when I see construction, like I'll like look up, like try to Google like what's going on with this building and see what's going on. And, really it's just when there's a new restaurant, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go try that and I want to talk about that. And so it's really just a couple different ways. Like I said, Google alerts, joining a couple local, Instagram pages, developers pages, things like that, and actually going to like something I've started doing is getting involved in like when the city is holding meetings about certain things, that are going on to kind of because it's not just local content with restaurants and stuff that's important, but people want to know what's going on in the city as well. So I'm really taking the time to go to meetings and learning about different things that are going on in the city so people are kept aware of it. And and again, looking at those Google alerts and getting those news articles about certain things that have happened. Like recently, I posted two things about, something going on in St. Pete where the baseball stadium was possibly built on a cemetery. And I posted something about, high speed rail coming to Tampa. And there's both of those posts like took off in on TikTok, actually, surprisingly, of all places. And so many people were like, I'm a local and I didn't know anything about this. And so having that and like showing people that they see me as the true local expert, not just with good places to eat, but I know and have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the city. So people like to see, what this building is going to be, or like there was a new Aldi that was built that a lot of people didn't know about. And, those kinds of things that I was able to post about before people found out about it. So then they knew that I'm involved in the city. I'm not just somebody who wants to sell houses here.
Yeah.
So
If you were a new agent starting over, is there a specific platform that you would focus on first for your content?
that's a tough one because I love Instagram, and that's kind of been where my jam has. That's been my jam for basically since I've been doing video. When I first got on TikTok, it was I was stuck in that pattern, like I just said, don't do viral trends or don't do trends. But I thought that that's all TikTok was supposed to be. It was just they wanted you to do the lip sync stuff and do funny stuff and point to captions and whatever. And and I was posting those videos and getting no engagement. And I also just felt like am I too old for TikTok? Like, I know I'm not old, but I'm not that young. And I'm like, I felt like it was just all pure entertainment. Now, I like to have fun. I like to make people laugh. But I was like, I don't think this is I don't think that TikTok's for me. So I actually got off TikTok for a while and just focused on Instagram. And I really built that and got my growing there and did all my things. And then recently, when there was a lot of different changes with stuff, and people were like, TikTok's not just an entertainment platform anymore. Now people wanting to do these things. And so I'm like, all right, I'll give TikTok a chance again. And so that's when I posted those two local news stories that both took off like thousands and thousands and thousands of views. And then they didn't do as well on Instagram. They just did okay. So really, for me, it's going to depend on what you want. Like everybody's different. I would just say that if you are just starting out, don't overwhelm yourself with feeling like you have to do Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, surprisingly enough, is becoming the new thing where people are starting to post there too. But don't feel like you have to do all of them. Find the one that you're the most comfortable with and that you're going to be consistent with and stick with, and just do that one. And then as time goes on, branch out and see what you want to do. YouTube, like I said a couple times, is my bear right now. That's the one that I need to get used to because Instagram is a whole different, as a whole, you look at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they're kind of similar in a lot of ways. YouTube is very different. You've got your long form, you got your short form, and people want to not just be entertained. They want you to talk for 20 minutes about something going on or what this neighborhood is, and they're there to commit and watch your entire video. They don't just want to be a quick dopamine hit and scroll on to the next thing. So, you know, YouTube's been my thing that I've had to start getting comfortable with. So start with something that you know that you're going to be consistent with, you're comfortable with, and just start posting. That's the best thing that you can do. And if you can't think of anything, talk about stuff that you're comfortable with. If you're great at educational content as a real estate agent, post everything you can about educational content. If you don't want to talk about that and you just want to tell people how much you love living in your city, then go focus on that. When you don't have clients, you don't have appointments, go film, go do things like that. Do B-roll, do short form, go review a restaurant and do a voiceover. Like all of those things are going to help you not only get more comfortable on camera, but start to help build your following, and people are going to see that you are the local expert. So
I completely agree with that. Do you have any like cannot live without tools that you use for posting content or creating content?
yeah, I have my apps that I use. I love CapCut. I've been using Edits for Instagram, which has been actually kind of nice doing the green screen in there. Has I love doing green screens, and that seems to be pretty easy thing to use. So yeah, CapCut, the Instagram edits. I have a gimbal that I use that I really like because that helps with, when you're filming stuff even outside of your car and things like that, you can use it. It's easy to to use that kind of stuff. So I'm not really a big high tech person. Teleprompter is another big one. Like I really try to, when I do my green screens, I memorize line by line. But when I'm doing my YouTube long form, I really need a teleprompter because I feel like when I just start talking, like I get nervous and then I'm like, I feel like I'm rambling and then I'm forgetting what I want to say. So I've realized that if I write out my script of what I want to say, I read it a couple of times, upload it into my teleprompter, and then I kind of use it as a guide. I don't just sit there and read it line by line. I kind of use it as a guide. So those are probably it. CapCut, Instagram edits, the teleprompter, and having a gimbal is really, really good too. That's pretty much it. I don't use a lot of high tech stuff. I keep it simple.
Yeah, I
And my
love that
phone,
you keep
my
it
phone.
simple. I think that that is something that new agents should take away from this is it doesn't have to cost a boatload of money to get started, and you don't need, 15 different apps that you're using to put content out.
There's so much out there and it's very easy to get overwhelmed and you will get overwhelmed. And I found myself getting overwhelmed at one point thinking, oh, well, I have to go get this ring light, or oh, I have to go get these big production lights, or oh, I have to go into a studio and record content. And yeah, I did do that stuff for a while, but every time I did, I found myself coming back to the OG of having this phone and me. And I think that people relate to that more because again, you're a human being who just happens to sell real estate. You're a human being who's making content. You're being yourself, like you're doing these videos. People don't relate with this, robot type thing. So
Yeah.
keep it simple and don't overthink it. That's the best advice I can give you.
People don't want to be sold. And that's something that from the minute I started following you stood out. You never feel salesy whatsoever. And I think that brings the wall down for people to want to get to know you. It's not, I'm selling this, I'm selling that. I closed, 20 million in production last month. I think that that
Yes.
says a lot about who you are. You are a genuine human who happens to also sell real estate.
And I get it. We're real estate agents, and I've been guilty of this, of being like, look how much volume I closed. And it's like, cool, cool. But how did you help your client? How does that help someone buy a home? How does that help someone through the a low appraisal? How does that help your client who all of a sudden can't close on their loan? How does that help a first time home buyer know, you know, how to buy a home or what down payment programs there are or what they need to know, what they need to have up front? Like, I feel like a lot of agents post that stuff for other agents and the volume and stuff. No hate, no shade. Again, like I get it. Like there's a lot of really fantastic agents who have closed a lot of real estate and a lot of people post about it. But I always look at that and I've been guilty of it too. Trust me, I've been
Me
guilty of
too.
it.
Yeah.
When things pop up on my Facebook memories, man, it's humbling
Ooh.
to have those memories because I see things pop up. And I'm like, why did I post that? And I'm like, why did I say that? But again, you have to start somewhere. You have to make the cringe-worthy content. You have to post the cringe things to learn because you're going to find out who you are and what you want and what you don't want by doing those things and watching other people. So I've noticed that watching other agents, what I don't want to do, or watching other content creators, what I don't want to do, you want to be a resource to people. They want to know that you can help them buy a home or sell a home. They want to know, what hurdles did you experience with your closing, which is why I love with my client stories to say, hey, Joe Smith just bought this house. Here's how our experience went, whether it's challenges, whether it's, hey man, everything went from start to finish smooth, no issues whatsoever, or here's a buyer that I work with that I was able to help them buy a home with $350 out of their pocket. That's a true story. That is something that I was able to do. That's showing people not only proof of business, but that what you can do to help them without being like, sold another house and I sold 20 million. Again, cool story, bro, but how does that help me as a consumer or as a buyer or as a seller to know how much real estate you've sold? Like, because there's a lot of people out there that have sold a lot of homes that maybe don't do things that I do. And maybe I don't do things that they do, but that's just, if that makes sense, I hope.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. The public wants to know what you can do to help them. I don't think for the most part, the public in general really cares that any of us sold X amount of million or however many homes if there's no context with it. It's
Yeah.
the
Yep.
stories of the people that you help and how you help them because people want to know that you can help them too.
That's exactly it because it's good to show that you have the business because people want to know that they're working with someone that, can help them with unexpected things that come up. And, this is where I think new agents struggle the most because you learn by doing. You learn through going through crazy experiences or things that pop up. And even as long as I've been doing this, there's still stuff that pops up. So you have to use those experiences to learn and be able to use them as ways to say, here's how I got through this so that when it happens again, which likely it will, sometimes there's those crazy ones that are like once in a lifetime it's going to happen. But for the most part, you may have things pop up more than once and you're going to show people that, hey, I've got experience with this. And here's how I figured it out. And here's how I helped my person. And you can't showcase that by just talking about how much you've sold in real estate, which is
Yeah.
important, of course, and kudos to you, but it needs to go beyond that.
I think no, I think that's great advice. That's really where content is right now.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
How do you think social media has directly impacted your business?
It has for sure, because not only to get new clients, which I definitely have gotten leads from it. And funny enough, I was just actually talking to somebody about this earlier today that someone who's been struggling with their content and being like, well, I've posted so much about my city and so many people have followed me that now I don't know what to do about real estate. I said, and she said, I think I'm trying to transition into going to real estate. And I said, don't do that. I said, don't transition into real estate. I said, keep doing your city. People are looking at you as the expert. Sprinkle in your real estate content. Like that's the kind of stuff that you want to do. So for me, I was telling her, I said, some leads that I've gotten from my social media are not even from anything that I posted that's real estate related. I have somebody who reached out to me and wanted to hire me as a buyer's agent because they saw me post a video talking about a story about how I fell down the stairs showing a house. That wasn't
I
showing them
remember that
that,
video.
yeah, like that wasn't like, hey guys, look, I can show you how to buy a house. That was, look, I fell on my ass while I was showing a house. And that was what made them want to hire me because they're like, you had a sense of humor and you took something that happened and made it funny and like were able to laugh at yourself. And then another, these are two that stick out to me specifically because they were people who found me through non real estate content. And another person that I sold a home to, it's been a year now, last year. I had posted it. My face wasn't even in the video. It was one of those CapCut templates, that they do where you could put a
Yeah.
picture or a video behind it. And it was that a Home Alone clip of Kevin in the church talking about, it's dark, it smells funny, and there's weird stuff down there. And so I put that up there and made a joke about something about, about Tampa. And that thing went crazy viral. Like I have almost 1 million views on it. Like it's
My
crazy. And
gosh.
that person just happened to see it, thought it was funny, and goes, "Oh my gosh, this is so true about this area." She goes, "And I had just moved to this area, and even me just moving here, I was like, oh, that's totally true about that area." She goes, so she came to my page and was like, "Oh, she's a real estate agent. Okay, well, I'm still going to follow her." And then when it came time for them to buy a house, they came back and hired me because of that video that had nothing to do with real estate. They loved my sense of humor. So posting that kind of stuff is so important because you never know when it's going to resonate with people. So it has definitely helped me connect with new people, but it also helps me to stay top of mind with people that not, or maybe friends and family of mine that sure they're going to remember, but how many times have you had a friend or family member hire somebody else to do real estate, or maybe a friend, and they're like, oh well, I didn't know if you did real estate anymore. Like staying on top of that and staying in front of people. Even I hate saying past clients because I think 99% of my clients that I've worked with have ended up becoming friends of mine. Like I'm going to a graduation party this weekend for a client of mine, like
Love
for
that.
their daughter that graduated high school. And it's like, so like that's the kind of stuff I get invited to. I have another client who emailed me earlier this week. When can we get together for dinner? Like, like they become my friends, but like them
Yeah.
following me on my Instagram or following me on Facebook, like I try to become friends with all of them there. They see that and they see me still posting content, and it gets and shows up, and they see the things. And so it helps remind them as too. So it not only helps build my business, but it helps me also sustain it and maintain it, because there's so many times that I get people who refer, people to me, and it's helped me get in front of more agents. Like something that I do as part of my business plan is I spend time every day engaging in my social media, because you don't want to just post and ghost. Instagram likes to know that you're moving, like you're talking to other people, you're engaging with other people. And every time I get a new follower, I send a video message to them saying, thanks so much for the follow. It's so nice to meet you. And I've done that not only with people who follow me that aren't other real estate agents or just people in general, but from doing that, even with other agents, it's helped me connect with so many other agents around in other areas that I get referrals from them now, because not only it wasn't just, hey, now we follow each other, I made a personal connection and they remembered that. And I have somebody I'm working with right now that was because I sent one of those DMs to somebody and they referred a client to me. So the personal touch goes a long way when it comes to social media. So again, it goes right back to posting the content, but also making it personal. And you can get personal in DMs. You can get personal in stories. Your reels and your carousels are going to be what's reaching people that maybe don't follow you yet. They may get in front of more people. Your stories and your DMs are the people who already follow you, but then it drills down and makes it more personal. And you get to have that more one-on-one connection, which is vital with growing your business. It's not just about the content, it's about the personal connections too.
You just made a really powerful point that so many times agents think of social media as a way to get clients. But you just pointed out that it's also an avenue to create relationships with other agents for referrals. And that
Yep.
becomes an additional lead generation source in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not somebody who I've done door knocking, I've done cold calling. It's not my jam. And in today's day and age, I mean, there's still people who do it. God bless them.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do, like I applaud you, because I freaking hated it. I hated cold calling. You have to find what works for you. And for me, social media works. And when I look at my whiteboard that I have in my office of every transaction I do, I always put next to it, where did that person come from? So that I can remember, like, in all of my deals, all of them, like even just this year so far, have all been personal referrals or agent to agent referrals, or people that already know me, like my sphere of influence. I've not had to go pick up the phone and do one cold call or one door knock. And the only time I do door knocking is if I have a listing and I'm going to do an open house. That's another story for another day. But that helps too, because I've gotten business from that as well. So that kind of stuff, that's the only door knocking I'll do. I will not just go up and door knock and say, do you want to list your house with me? Like, I just tell people, hey, I've got an open house going on your street, because you'd be surprised how many people drive by a house for sale in their neighborhood and don't even see the sign. So that's another thing. But again, that's a story for another day. So yeah, it's really important to use that. And for me, social media is my main lead pillar. And it's not just posting content, but like I just said, it's engaging with people, sending DMs, commenting on people's stuff, liking on their things, scrolling through, even just reels and like the discovery page to find stuff, because that helps too. And you never know who you're going to connect with in various different ways or what you're looking at. So, and you also
Yeah.
can get content ideas. So
We should do another video on your open house strategy because I know that you do killer open houses and you have a system for them. You're right. That's the
yeah.
story for another day.
Yeah, for sure. Because you can make them successful. They don't just, and I, to the point where I just had somebody text me yesterday and ask me for advice on something, and I gave her something that I do. And she's like, I never even thought about that. And now she's going to take it and go do it with one of her listings. So,
Run with it.
there's so many ways that you can think outside the box, and not only to get your stuff sold, but to show your sellers that you are different than other agents, or you're going above and beyond. So many agents just stick a sign in the yard and are like, oh, someone's gonna let the buyers come to me. And but yeah, again, that's a story for another day.
We'll do another video on that. I think that
Yeah.
that would be helpful too because open houses for new agents are a great way to get business if they're done right.
Yep. I totally agree. And it's not just sitting there and forcing people to sign in because 99% of the time they're going to give you the wrong number or the wrong email. So there's a way to be able to get real legit people. And trust me, I've done it. So again, we'll talk about that another day.
All right, so you've been in real estate for decades at this point. If you could give a new agent one piece of advice, what would it be?
This is what I used to tell every new agent when I was on the admin manager side of things. Every new agent who came into my office, that's a great question because I remember one story in particular sticks out. I said this with every agent, but this one story always sticks out in my mind because the agent came back to me later and said that was the best advice you ever gave me. And that was to treat this like a job. If you're brand new to this business and you don't have any clients, you need to still act like that you've got a 9 to 5, create content, go network with people, sit in your office. If you have an office, go sit in your office, listen to conversations that agents are having, be a sponge, absorb everything they're saying, find another agent that maybe you admire and reach out to them and be like, would you be willing, to answer some questions for me or do whatever. And when I told this one agent this, I mean, like I said, I told every agent that was new this information, but this one agent came back to me years later. She has become very successful and sells a lot of real estate. And she told me, she's like, I remember that day that you told me to do that. And I remember seeing her in the office all the time. She didn't have clients, but she'd bring her laptop, she'd listen, she'd ask questions, she'd do whatever. And now this agent does so much business and has such an amazing client base and does so much because of that one thing. And people think that real estate agents, we have a bad reputation because of everything that's on TV, that we just open a door and make $1 million, and that's not the case. Or you get to get your license, go sit on the beach and stuff's just going to come to you. It's not. Sometimes it does happen. Sometimes it's all on who you know, and you may know a lot of people, but the majority of us, it's going to take an effort and it's going to take time. And I'm telling you, the one thing I tell people is that it takes a good, for me, it took a good solid 5 years to build a business where I'm not having to constantly go out and seek it. I get things that come to me now. And I still, again, with my content, that's going out and looking for business, but it's, having people and remembering, and it's a piece of all of it together that really helps. So that's probably the best advice I could give is treat this like a job, even though it's not a job. It's your business and you need to
Yeah.
grow it like a business. So
You treated it like a job and put all of that work in, and now you're attracting clients instead of having to go out and seek them out.
yeah, absolutely.
You
And
earned
it's,
it.
yeah, for sure. I've earned my stripes.
And proud of them as you
Yep.
should be.
I always say I'm gonna write a book someday because I've got stories to tell of things that have happened. So,
Oh, I would be first in line to read it.
oh
So if
man.
anybody wants to get in touch with you, I'll definitely include all of your contact info and socials in the description. But if somebody wants to start following you or get in touch with you or has a referral for the Tampa area, where can they find you?
So my everything is really easy to find. My Instagram and my TikTok are the exact same. It's just at the Alyssa McIntyre. Facebook, you just look me up, Alyssa McIntyre. YouTube, it's the same thing. It's just Alyssa McIntyre living in Tampa. So I keep it simple with just my name because I want people to know who I am. So yeah, definitely follow me and yeah, would love to make some new connections with more people.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I love talking with you. I admire you in so many ways, and I know that there are so many nuggets in this that I've got to go back and watch it myself. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great talking with you and here to help anybody. I love helping people. I'm genuinely one of those people that loves helping people. So I have people messaging me all the time asking me questions and stuff. So don't be afraid. I'm here to help.
I know she means that. So if you have a question, you really can reach out to Alyssa. She will be happy to answer it.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks again, Alyssa.
Thank you.